He says that, this song is thematically connected to the last song. And in case you are watching this review separately from the stream, the last song was a band called Daughters, and the name of the song is called Mothers.
Sounds like Smashing Pumpkins a little bit. Got you like you want to know, got that little child.
Yeah, it does.
Similar progression, right?
Mother, don't worry, I killed the last snake that lived in a creek bed. Mother, don't worry, I've got some money I saved for the weekend. Mother, remember being so stern with that girl who was with me. Mother, remember the blink of an eye when I breathe through your body. So may the sun rise, bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns are like birds flying upwards over the mountain. Mother, I made it up from the bruise on the floor of this prison. Mother, I lost it all of the fear of the Lord I was given. Mother, forget me now that the great drank the cradle you sang to. Mother, forgive me, I sold your car for the shoes that I gave you. So may the sun rise, bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns can be birds, taken, broken up to the mountain. Mother, don't worry, I've got a coat and some friends on the corner. Mother, don't worry, she's got a garden we're planting together. Mother, remember the night that the dog got her pups in the pantry. Blood on the floor, fleas on their paws, and you cried till the morning. So may the sun rise, bring hope where it once was forgotten. Suns are like birds flying always over the mountain.
Damn.
I see how this is the other side. In more ways than one.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, this is from the kid's perspective. So, you know, in the other song, it was like the kid takes off and doesn't remember their mother.
Yep.
This one, you know, he clearly does, and he's remembering all the things. And this is a son. The other one was a daughter.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of moms say that, like, my relationship with my sons is just, you know, the way that sons are with their mothers, you know? I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times, too.
What?
The way that sons are with their mothers. I mean, our oldest boys, they're not biologically mine, and the way that they are with their mother was just unbelievable to me. You know, she put them through a lot, but that's still their mom. And I think that, yeah, I'm gonna let you talk, because basically, like, the part that kind of stuck out to me was at the end when it was talking about, mother, don't worry, I've got a coat and some friends on the corner. Mother, don't worry, she's got a garden. And then the dog, the pantry, and the pups. And the significance of what I thought that meant, but...
Go ahead, talk about it.
So, you know, mother, don't worry, I killed the last snake that lived in the creek bed. Mother, don't worry, I've got some money I saved for the weekend. This understanding that he has of that his mother's gonna worry about him, but also, like, he killed the last snake that lived in the creek bed. It sounds like he's taking care of the last danger before he left. So he took care of that, and then but he has some money saved for the weekend. And then he's reminding her of when he was with this girl, and she was being stern with the girl because she wanted to make sure that her boy was good. And, you know, sometimes I think, like, oh my gosh, like, my sons are going to grow up and they're all going to get wives, and, like, what if their wives, like, sometimes I think about some of the conversations or arguments or whatever that we've had, and I think, oh my gosh, like, if the way that I reacted in that conversation was how some girl reacted to my sons, I would not be okay with that. Sorry for that. But then he says, so may the sunrise bring hope where it was once forgotten. Suns are like birds flying upward over the mountain. I didn't understand when he said, mother, I made up from the bruise on the floor of this prison. But he says, I lost all of the fear of the Lord I was given. So I'm assuming that he got himself into a really bad place, because the scripture says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And it's not like a terrifying fear, like a fear of, like, a bad guy, or like a fear of, like, Jason or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's this, like awe and like respect that you have for, like, something. Like, let's say I mean, this is a weird example, but it's just what came into my mind. If you were working on, like, a really big piece of heavy equipment that you could easily get squashed by, but that equipment, you know, really is good for you. It helps you get the job done. It helps you whatever. Like, but you have to understand what equipment you're using, and you don't misuse it. You got to follow the rules and laws given to you about that equipment, so that way you don't end up getting, you know, harmed by the equipment. So it's that sort of, like, I don't know, it's such a weird example, but, like, that sort of...
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the reason we go on roller coasters. You go to a roller coaster to be afraid. Like, but it's a fear that you're paying $100 for. Like, people pay to be afraid.
Right.
So, we all know the difference between, like, being afraid because you're tied up by Jeffrey Dahmer versus being afraid because you're going on the biggest, fastest roller coaster in the world. Like, we know the difference between that kind of fear. There's a difference between assault and sex. There's a difference
Yeah.
between a boxing match and a beatdown. So, like, just because the word fear is used, I mean, we're all adults, we understand that.
Right.
But
Yeah, the equipment's probably bad.
that no, it's good because it makes you understand the weight of what you're dealing with if what we're saying is true. I mean, if what the secularists are saying is true, then it's all made up and there's no weight to anything. But if it's really true that there's a God in heaven and that he can just speak you in or out of existence and he's that powerful, yeah, you shouldn't play with him.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But it's not, God doesn't want to be looked at like Jason. He wants to be looked at like Six Flags, which of course I know a lot of people are going to be upset about that on the Christian side. But when you're no longer excited by God, that's when shit starts happening. Like we saw this in COVID, where little gangs started to pop up.
Yep.
Because the kids are bored. You see what I'm saying? And the authority structure and all that was gone, but one of the issues was idle hands. You're just bored. And so, like, having a fear of God means that you're a never bored person because you're constantly, like, excited to have some sort of glimpse of who God is on a daily basis. And so if you're that kind of individual, you're not going to end up in prison in the Western world. People can say what they want, but following the Sermon on the Mount is not going to get you locked up. Living a Christian... Listen, this is some of, like, the meat and potato stuff. Like, living a Christian life in America will keep you out of prison, out of child support for the most part, out of a bunch of STDs for the most part. Like, it's just a very practically wise way to live. And people that purposely deviate from that, it generally doesn't go well for them. People could say what they want, but, like, at the end of the day, like, I've had so many people that don't subscribe to our worldview or whatever, but they're like, I want what you guys have, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And people have no idea. If it was not for Jesus Christ, we would not be together.
Right.
Like, we would,
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's just it. I mean, especially, like, with me, like, you could be friends with me for a very long time and, like, realize, like, this is a fucking hard thing being around this guy. Like, it's tough, but anyway... the point is, when you fear God, you fear no man. Like, that's one of the main reasons, like, I'm not afraid of anyone. Because, I fear God. And when you're around God enough and you're blown away by God enough, people just seem small to you after that. And obviously you can use that for evil. Because it's like, I don't need none of y'all. Because, like, I know what it's like to be, like, in the gutter by myself. Like... that whole California situation 10 years back, like it was just me and Jesus in John chapter 15 through 17. And those chapters took me through the worst moments in my life. And so, like, but I missed that time. Yeah. I missed that time. And, like, it's not something you can, like, engineer. No. You know what I'm saying? No. And so, like, but that line was crazy because, like, he ended up in prison, but he bounced back out of the prison. And to me, it's funny because me and you have been listening to this Ian Bick, I think the guy's name is, the little nerdy kid that was in prison for fraud, and he was interviewing this big tattooed guy.
It was so crazy because there's so many times where Vinny and I will be, like, doing something, and I have this thought in my head, and he'll, like... It's like he can read my thoughts. It's like you already jumped into Elon's thing and you dragged me into it too. Because in my mind, I was looking at the kid doing the interviewing and I'm like, man, that kid knows nothing. He's never been through anything. And literally right after I said that in my head, he's like, this guy went to jail. What do you think he went to jail for? I was like, what? He went to prison? He went to prison, you said, right?
He went to prison applying the Sermon on the Mount. No, he went to prison for fraud. You know when Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no? That means, like, nobody should ever have to have you sign a contract. Your word should be as good as anything else. That's what that means. But, like, it was fascinating, like, watching this dude, like, he got jammed up a bunch of times, and, like, something would happen. Like, one time he was dead guilty, and there was some loophole in the law that just happened by accident, and he found it, and he got out. And then another time, like, and so this kid says to him, this guy's tatted up, like, he's violent dude, all that type. And the kid goes, what? How do you explain how you keep finding these loopholes? And he said, I'm just a recipient of unearned grace. And so he said, like, I'm doing everything and he's not there yet, because he's saying he's doing everything he can so that the universe at the end can hopefully he can even it out.
Oh, I thought that he was saying that was where he was. Oh, okay.
No, that's where he is. But
that's where he is now.
But like, I know God's heart toward that guy.
Yeah.
It's just, I'll take that.
Yeah.
It's not there yet, but I'll take that. Because all that means is dude doesn't know how much I love him yet. He understands that he's a recipient of unearned grace, but he doesn't know how much grace, because this guy has done so much bad shit in his life that he won't even allow himself to believe.
Yeah.
Not only that his record could be cleared when he stands before God, but that God could look at him and count him as righteous.
SubhanAllah.
And then, you know, in Hebrews where it says, Jesus is not ashamed to call us brothers.
Yeah.
And like, he should be ashamed to call me a brother. And he should be ashamed to call that guy a brother. But Jesus is going to claim that dude.
Blood for life.
Simple. So like, that's what hit me in the thing, because like, I went through a period, I always tell people I went through a period where I was saying I was an atheist and all this stuff. I'm not going to be like, oh, I was an atheist and I had this great experience with God. No, I was never an atheist. I was saying I was an atheist. I was saying there was no God and all this other bullshit. Mm-hmm. Because I was childish and I was associating God with my parents and like, you know. Mm-hmm. So I was doing my own thing, you know, and it was all bad. It was all bad. And it was one of the, like, I'd be in places and God'd be like, you don't belong here. You don't belong here, dude.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, you're claiming atheism, but at the same time,
I just remember very distinctly, I'm like looking at the situation going on and I'm like, yo, like out externally, if you were looking at me, you're like, yo, this dude's like really into this shit. But internally, it was just like, it wasn't like a big like thunderclap. It was just kind of like, you don't belong here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was kind of like, I'm just going to protect you for your mother's sake. Because my mom would be up there crying, praying every single night. Like, me and my mom fought like cats and dogs, like, pretty much almost to the very end. But, like, that's why, like, the song is so crazy to me. Like, there's a whole, like, line of conversation I'm not even going to touch.
Yeah.
But she was an imperfect person, you know? So it's hard for a person like that. Like, everybody's imperfect, but some people's flaws are more obvious. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for a person like that to be able to communicate how they feel, again, without all the thorns around it, you know? But I'll never, like, my mom, she gave me Jesus, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
she did.
But yeah, man, that shit is, it is true, like, the relationship between a son and his mother, man, is powerful. And you see it in rap, especially in the black community. Like, every rapper has to have a mom song. Mm-hmm. You know, like, every rapper, you know, like, I mean, I've known dudes who've, like, killed folks for touching their mom. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a whole different, like...
Yeah.
And it was ugly, like, it was ugly, but... Like, it's a different kind of love, like, that you have for your, you know... And it's a crazy feeling, like... I don't know. No, she's not here anymore. It's crazy to me. Like, all these events in my life that are happening, like... I don't know. This is a really, and like, especially like listening to that previous song. Me and my mom didn't have a normal relationship as far as like, you know, we had a couple of years where she wasn't around in some pretty formative moments, but I caused my mom the most stress. You know, I was the one getting in trouble, doing all types of crazy shit. My other brothers weren't like that at all. You know what I'm saying? So it was like listening to the song and seeing dude, like, I never ended up in prison, but that's just because I was so smart. Like, I did a lot of shit that she would be, you know, really ashamed of, you know.
don't know. She sees the other side. She understands.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, when you're young, you know, you don't, you know, I remember one of our friends, like the mature one, she was like, yo, all of us are spoiled listening to all this angsty music talking about our parents, but all of us are going home. You going home, you gonna eat what she put in front of you?
Yeah.
All of us hate our parents. We all hate our moms. You're gonna eat what she puts in front of you, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like, that was a crazy moment. Like, I wasn't gonna give her that. I was like, fuck you. But, like, that shit is true, man. It's real. It was real. It was real.
How
I never
old was she
forgot
when she
that.
said that?
Oh, 15, 16. Yeah, like, she, you know, metalheads are like, you know how metalheads are always, like, beyond everybody with shit, but. Anyway,
oh, well, wait, I wanted to, the ending of the song, where'd the lyrics? So at the end of the song, no, I don't need to do an update. So at the end, he says, Mother, don't worry, I got a coat and some friends on the corner. It was, I thought, I loved his understanding of his mother, in that she was going to worry that he didn't have a coat, and that she was going to worry that he didn't have friends, you know, because that's like, you know, a mother.
Yeah.
And I have especially one that's good about understanding stuff like that, and will tell me stuff, or anyway, that I'm not gonna go there. So then he says, Mother, don't worry, she got a garden and we're planting together, which I think that any mother would want to hear, that their son was in a good relationship with somebody and that they had a garden and they're planting it together, because it's the symbolism of that you would want to work side by side together, and that you would be able to work side by side together, and not just doing something destructive, because, you know, a lot of people can join up for Bonnie and Clyde because there's some real thrill in it, but can you join up to build together? That's a whole nother thing. It has a different type of thrill to it than Bonnie and Clyde. But then he says, Mother, remember the night that the dog had her pups in the pantry? Blood on the floor and the fleas in their paws, and you cried till the morning. And that to me was the dog having the puppies, and then there's blood everywhere, and then the puppies are born and they got fleas on them right at the beginning, and that's their living conditions, but that's the best that the mother could do. And I think that the mother herself, the mother, the human mother, was looking at the dog mother, and maybe like seeing the similarities of how she's giving the pups the best that she can, but those pups are just born and they're dealing with fleas. Like, you just got born, there's still blood on the floor, and like the similarities of how the mother feels like she wasn't able to give her son everything that she, you know, everybody wants to give their kids everything, but if you give them everything, you spoil them. But, you know, every mom wants, especially if you're in a bad situation, you want to be able to give them the best, and so you don't want to feel like the blood is still on the floor, but your kids are covered in fleas, and you know. So I think that the similarities between the dog in that situation and the mother, of how she felt like she was doing as a mother, the commentary that it made on her of how she was with her own sons, but he remembered that event. He just seems like a really thoughtful son, like to.
Well, you remember Riley?
Yeah.
You know, Riley was a little kid in the church, and he didn't have his mom. He was a bad kid. But I loved that kid.
You loved him.
Went to baptize him, remember
that? You
that?
loved him so much that the love spread, and other people.
You remember we went to baptize him? He went and dunked himself.
He did, that's right. He couldn't wait. He was so
doing
excited.
For Jesus, he said.
Put his face first right into the water.
His dad is a real hard dude, man. I was gonna write a book about that year and a half, but it'd have to be mega anonymous, because it was like his dad was just like him, like good-hearted dude, but like literally the toughest dude in the city. And I remember like one time we were like doing this prayer thing in a park, and like I heard my name, and nobody had called my name. Believe what you want. But, like, I turned around to see who called me, and there's Riley's dad about to square up with this dude.
Yeah.
So I took off, and dude's friend was like, I'm going to police. And the police station was, like, in walking distance. So, like,
I didn't know what to think about this situation. I agree with you.
I put dude in the car, and we got out of there. Because he already had a record, all this. And it was like, we just came
he didn't have a thing out on him.
No, he didn't have the jam. He didn't have the jam on him. He was just going to, you know, he's on some Vaughn shit in prison type thing.
Yeah.
And, like, tough dude, like, literally, like, his hands have been, like restructured because of, like, the dirt he was doing with his hands. Toughest.
I mean, no, it wasn't just that.
The cops tortured him and all that. Like, but, like, like, I put him in the car, and we just, like, I got him out of there, and we were ducking, and the cops, you know, lights, all that, and, like, we were cutting through places and all this, getting to, you know, whatever, and I'm like helping this dude escape the cops who just got out of church.
Chair back, he said.
Oh, yeah, I was like, get down, blah, 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 because you're going right up Lewiston Street, right with Popo, like, cars are going by.
Man.
And I was just like, yo, chill. But, like, he's that kind of guy, like, just... You know, just shit always ends up in the wrong situation. And he was good. He was well intentioned too when he was going to mix that dude up because he was hurting the girls.
Yep.
Remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember.
So he was gonna put that dude in a blender for them girls. So he was like a noble thing, but you know, I could see him saying this to his mom, you know, and I could see his mom being like, "Oh, he's a lost cause or whatever." But like, and that's why he talked about like the bird at the end gets carried up the mountain.
I did see something about being carried up the mountain. It reminded me.
Yeah, like at first he says
suns are like birds flying always over the mountain.
Yeah, but then toward the end, I thought he said like he was carried up the mountain or something like that. Too. But yeah, man.
Oh, wait a minute.
It was a beautiful song.
Suns can be birds taken broken up to the mountain.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Suns are like birds flying always over the mountain.
Yeah.
So it's both of them.
Well, yeah, you could be both. Like, and I think it's like it ends with the hopeful one where he's flying over the mountain. Like, so, like he went through his period of brokenness, and now he can fly. You know what I'm saying?
So may the sunrise bring hope where it once was forgotten.
Yeah. So
Suns
like,
are like birds flying over the mountain.
It ends well, and you can, you know, people can look at like, I lost the fear of the God that you gave me or whatever. Like people can look at that like, oh, I was liberated or whatever. Sure. Okay, whatever. Or you could look at it like he is connecting him being in prison to his lack of the fear of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways I know that a person is really crossed over is when they stop making excuses. Mm-hmm. Like this dude, you know, because like there was one he was telling a story how when he was in jail he was in a gang, and when you're in a gang, if the leader tells you to go get somebody, it's point and click. That's it. And so apparently this guy had snitched on one of the members of the gang in the past, and so he was on site, meaning as soon as you see him, go after him. It doesn't matter if the cops are there or whatever. So he sees the guy, it was his assignment, so he attacks him. He ends up spending like 2 months in solitary confinement, which he said was like was torture.
Yeah.
So him and this dude got out at literally the same time.
Why they did that?
He saw the guy again and took off on him again, ended up there for 4 months. So he gets out after 6 months, and they went to him and it was like, yo, the dude that we pointed out for you to beat up, actually what ended up happening was our guy snitched on him and he was trying to clean it up. So like both of us are looking at each other like, yo, he just spent 6 months in solitary for nothing. And so the interviewer goes to this guy, this criminal, and he goes, how does it feel to have spent 6 months in solitary for no reason? Mm-hmm. And his immediate response was, I hurt somebody for no reason.
Right.
Like, so when I'm seeing, like, I'm out of the prison, I lost the fear of the Lord, and them being connected. Again, this goes back to song 1. Whatever your presuppositions are, that's what you're going to see. Some people look at the fear of the Lord as a prison, in which case you can interpret that way. That's fine. I look at the fear of the Lord as the only thing that gives me hope and happiness in life. And so to abandon that is going to land you in a place like prison. But when you see somebody say, I did that, that was my fault, and doesn't blame their upbringing, doesn't blame their parents, doesn't blame society, doesn't blame the white, like, I don't care who it is, like, dude, like, take accountability for your shit, and stop blaming everybody for your shit, which, when I was suicidal in the hospital, that's what God told me, and that's the only thing that turned me around, and, like, there's a complete lack of responsibility in young men today. Everybody has an excuse for everything. Nobody's responsible or accountable for anything. Everybody has a fucking excuse. And, like, I always say, like, for example, like, if you went to prison because the cop was a racist, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, if me and you were talking and you really robbed that person, I don't care if the cop or the judge was racist. If me and you were talking, I'm just going to say, fucking take accountability for the fact that you robbed the person. Society didn't make you rob that person, bro. You did that shit. Now, if I talk to the cop, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to say, you racist motherfucker, blah, blah, blah. But, like, everybody has to take accountability for their own shit. And, like, that's one of the major, if people are honest, major issues they have with Christianity. Because Christianity is stubborn in saying, you have not done well all the time. You're not a perfect person. And anybody that you judge, whether it's a Nazi, a fascist, a whatever, you're on the same team.
Yeah.
And you need to take accountability for your shit and recognize that you can't change yourself. And that's a really hit to the ego. And if we're honest, that is a major, major beef that a lot of people have with Christianity. I get it.
Yeah, I think at some point, I think that there's like a crossover point, though, where that almost just relaxes you. Because you're like,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
This was just the shitty things I'm doing, but everybody's doing shitty things.
Correct.
So it's
Seduct.
we all need the same thing. We all need Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
very convenient that way. Yeah, it's very convenient once you let go of the ego.
Like, I've got problems, and you don't have the same problems I have.
No.
But you have problems, and I don't have the same problems you have. So
Bless
it's like,
God.
okay,
that's good for the world.
Well, it's good that we don't have the same problem. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, but I 100,000% agree with you. 100,000% agree. Wow, these two songs are mega deep, man.
Jeez, Matt, please send me an email, and just if you could open up and give me your thoughts, I really would appreciate that. I'll read it. Vinny and I will read it together.
Not publicly or whatever.
No. I mean, unless you want us to.
And like that's kind of like dickish to like put him on the spot like that. But I would, if you would consider it.
we just.
I would. I've never been more curious as to a person's.
What was going on?
There was another request that I, to this day, I'm still click send on that email to the person. But yeah.
Seriously, why don't you?
I don't know. I feel like that's such a personal thing, although it's kind of hypocritical because we share our personal interpretations all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think but
I just know how sacred that is. Yeah. People
can say no,
but,
or people can not answer.
Especially if you're asking.
People can be as vague or as explicit as they want.
Correct.
Correct. It's a song remind me of my mother. You could say as little as that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or you can go into it, go all in, like we did, cry and everything. Boo hoo. All right, what do you give the song?
He's man, those two songs were back-to-back bangers, man. They really were. I'll give this one a 10. I haven't given out a 10 since we've been here. I don't think I've given out a 10.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that you gave the son one a 10, and I gave the daughter one. Like the mother, you know what I mean?
The
like
mother
the
song was Song of the Year. I made that thing Song of the Year. I really think you should get something if you chose the Song of the Year. Whoever did that mother song, send me an email.
What do you mean whoever? It's Matt.
Is it Matt?
We were just talking to him.
Okay.
Remember he did both songs
He's got to tell us what he wants. I mean, there's still 5 months left, but I find it hard to believe that I'm going to run another song that's more effective.
Yeah, but anytime that you pass out a Song of the Year, even if you pass out 3 in the year, those 3 people should get something.
I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, Matt,
this one's a 10. The last one was Song of the Year. So, Matt, you're going to You got a lot of emails you need to send to us, my boy. Got a lot of emails to send.
I'm going to give this one a 9.8.
All right, it's a 10 for me. We shall be back, dear listener. We shall be back.